It was certainly an eventful offseason for the Texas A&M Aggies as they head into the 2022 season. It all started when head coach Jimbo Fisher was able to bring in the highest-ranked recruiting class of all time. But there was rising skepticism from his former mentor of how that actually went down.
We were second in recruiting last year. A&M was first. A&M bought every player on their team, made a deal for name, image, and likeness. All right, we didn't buy one player.
As you might imagine, Fisher didn't take too kindly to those allegations and teed off on Saban.
It's despicable that a reputable head coach could come out and say this. Some people think they're God. Go dig into how God did his deal. You may find out about a guy that a lot of things you don't want to know. Go dig into his past.
As the feud between Fisher and Saban continued throughout the spring, college football fans everywhere circled October 8th on their calendars. That's when the Aggies travel to T-Town to take on the Crimson Tide, setting up perhaps the must-watch game of the season. As far as players on the field, while much of the focus will certainly be on the much-hyped freshman class, the Aggies season may come down to what they get from the quarterback position. For now, it's a three-horse race between LSU transfer Max Johnson, former starter Haynes King, who went down in week 2 of last season, and five-star true freshman stud Connor Wegman. It will potentially be a season-deciding decision that Fisher may not determine until shortly ahead of their opening.
You got a freshman who I think was the best one in the country. You got Haynes King, who would have had a tremendous year if he hadn't got hurt. You got Max Johnson, who threw for 2,800 yards, 27 touchdowns. You got three quality guys.
Is this the year Texas A&M's talent translates to a playoff spot? Although the competition is as steep as it gets in the SEC West, expectations continue to build in College Station.
Jimbo, Jimbo, Jimbo.
All right, Barrett Sallee voiced that preview for A&M, and he joins us now as we look at the 9th-ranked team in our preseason poll. Barrett, A&M has the third best odds to win the SEC. Are they the third best team in the conference?
No, I don't think so. I think there are so many questions revolving around Texas A&M right now that you're making some presumptions and some assumptions if you're going to put them at the number 3 spot, specifically at quarterback. We talked about the 3-man battle at quarterback, but Jimbo Fisher's offense puts so much responsibility on whoever wins that job. And there are drawbacks, and granted, some things to be excited about with all three. Connor Wegman's a true freshman. Haynes King didn't get to play that much last year. And Max Johnson was just sort of a dude at LSU. So there's that. There's the defensive line. And to me, I think the hype and the buzz around the Aggies has more to do with the recruiting class than anything else. And in reality, that class isn't going to make as big of an impact this year as it will in the future.
They signed 8 5-stars, the highest-ranked recruiting class in college football history. One of those 5 stars in the running to be the starting quarterback. Where are we at with this 3-horse race?
Yeah, it sounds to me like as of this very moment, it's Max Johnson, Haynes King, depending on which one has the better day, is probably going to be the number 1 quarterback. But I think at this point, it's fair to assume Jimbo Fisher thinks the world of Connor Wegman. So I think if both of those guys, if Max Johnson and Haynes King, if they don't become difference makers, it wouldn't surprise me if Connor Wegman takes that job by the middle of the season, because his upside is just too good and too big to ignore. But as it stands right now, I don't think there's any doubt. Jimbo Fisher went out and got Max Johnson. He named Haynes King as starting quarterback this time last year. So those two are definitely the front runners. I think Jimbo trusts them to stay smart with the football. But like I said, at Texas A&M, there's a lot put on the quarterbacks, and they're going to have to learn quickly in order for them to be legit contenders this year.
Yeah, what are the chances, though, that this is an issue all season long where, hey, if one guy struggles, it might be a short leash because the competition has been so tight and because there's a 5-star true freshman waiting in the wings?
What Jimbo did not say that he wanted to do that at media days. He specifically said that, he wants to name a starter. But I think because it's such a crowded field and because of the potential of the true freshman Wegman, that you at least have to consider it. I think right now it's different for Texas A&M now than it was in the past. When Kellen Mond was there, he was pretty darn solid. I don't think we appreciate what he did enough. And then last year, obviously, Zach Calzada came in when Haynes King got hurt. There were no other options, but Jimbo has options this year. I think the question becomes, does he pull the trigger? When does he pull the trigger? And how much responsibility does he put on the backup, whoever that may be, whether it's Wegman or Max Johnson or Haynes King? So, yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't say a 2-quarterback system, but potentially replacing one with another mid-season is certainly a possibility based on some of the things I've been hearing and kind of based on how Jimbo has approached this from the beginning.
They are replacing their running back Isaiah Spiller, a 4th-round pick by the Chargers in the draft. The cupboard far from bare, though, in the backfield.
Yeah, Devin Achane is a really good player. I mean, a really good north and south running back. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can do a variety of different things, and he's going to be the leader of this running back situation. I don't think there's anything doubt about that. Amari Daniel's a guy who I think when you look at how he was used as a freshman, more of a slasher, more of a speed, acceleration. I think you'll see a lot. And then Anaya Smith, you see right there, wide receiver. I wouldn't even classify him as a wide receiver. I would call him a Swiss Army knife because Jimbo can get extremely creative with how he uses them. So you're talking about a rushing attack that is pretty multidimensional. And I think if you throw in what you might get from the quarterback spot, because all three of those guys can move too, not necessarily Johnny Manziel move, but they can move enough, then you're talking about a pretty versatile and deep running back attack and rushing attack if Jimbo gets all these guys to play at the level that I think they expect them to.
On the defensive side of the ball, they've got 3 of the top 7 defensive players in this year's class. They're all on the defensive line. What kind of an impact, though, will they have in their true freshman season?
Well, it's a double-edged sword, Chris. And yeah, I mean, they're going to have an impact because that's one spot where, in terms of experience, you don't really have that much if you're Texas A&M. So I think when you see these names, when you see Walter Nolan, Shamar Stewart, Levis Overton, Gabriel Brownlow-Dendy, these are guys who can be superstars. But if you're going to be a championship caliber team, you have to have 9 or 10 guys on that rotation every single game. You have to be able to rotate 9 or 10 guys in the SEC. So Jimbo is going to ask these guys to be part of that rotation. And look, they might be talented. In fact, they are talented. These guys, this class is just insane. The idea that these players aren't going to play really, really well at some point is not the case. But I think when you ask them to go up against 22-year-old men with, AARP cards and responsibilities as an adult, that's not easy to do. So I think the defensive line in the future is going to be just fine at Texas A&M. But I think maybe part of the reason you get some of that buzz this year about Texas A&M is because of that recruiting class. But some of those guys might not make an impact until year 2 or year 3.
And they might be challenged early. Looking at the schedule, 2 non-conference games pop out. App State, a team that we know is a double-digit win team the last several seasons. I mean, that's not a team that you can just roll right over. And, of course, Miami is on the non-conference schedule as well. Do either one of those games scare you before the SEC?
App State, not so much. Miami, absolutely, because I think when you look at what the Canes are going to excel in, that's passing the football, then that means for Texas A&M, you got to get some pressure on Tyler Van Dyke. And because Tyler Van Dyke, if you let him sit in the pocket, a clean pocket, he'll pick you apart. Now, Miami does have to find some receivers, but they've got plenty to choose from. But Texas A&M needs to figure its defensive line rotation out before that game, because the last thing they need is Tyler Van Dyke with time in that pocket. So that one definitely concerns me. I think any idea that Texas A&M is just going to roll over the Canes, I don't think that's realistic. I think that's maybe a lack of knowledge of Tyler Van Dyke or not appreciating what he did last year coming in a pinch and really became one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC.
They have a stretch where they do not have a game at College Station for a month. And in that stretch is the game in Tuscaloosa against Alabama. You were at SEC Media Days. You talked with both Jimbo and Nick Saban. They both said it's water under the bridge. Where are we with the spat between the two, coming off Jimbo's win head-to-head last year?
I think the spat between the two coaches themselves is over and done with. In fact, in our room at Media Days on that Thursday, Jimbo Fisher said, "Hey, we're both from West Virginia. We go and figure it out." And I can't really speak as fast as Jimbo because nobody on earth can. But I think from a water under the bridge standpoint, that's exactly where those two stand. Look, coaching's a type A personality job. You have to be a little bit of an egomaniac to do it. Like, that's just what you have to do. So these guys digging their heels in and going after each other isn't necessarily the most surprising thing from a personality perspective. But I will say this, I think it's moved from the coaching aspect, Jimbo and Nick going after each other, to the player aspect. Will Anderson Jr. was asked about it, and he said, we'll see on October 8th. You know, kind of just, not pat you on the head, Texas A&M, move along. So I think the players have maybe picked up where the coaches left off. After Jimbo and Nick buried the hatchet, I think some of the players, especially the Alabama players, are really excited to go defend their program and defend their coach against what they feel anyway was an unnecessary attack.
Now, A&M got them last season, but Alabama got to the national championship game. Alabama's the defending SEC champion. They've got to go to Tuscaloosa. That is their toughest game of the year, but they have other really tough ones on the schedule. Their over-under is set at 8.5. And there's a lot of juice to the over at -170.
Yeah, I would go under. I think Texas A&M's an 8-4 team to me. I think Miami's tricky. Alabama's tricky. I think Ole Miss is tricky. And you can't count on Texas A&M going through their toss-ups unblemished. So I think right now, in a situation like Texas A&M, when all this pressure is being put on them, a lot of it goes to the quarterback. And I'm not sure if any of those three guys are capable of handling that. So if I had to bet on Texas A&M, I would say they're an 8-4 team. So I would take that under, especially considering the juice going to the other side. I just don't see them as a legit contender this year.
Chip Patterson on the Cover 3 has them losing at South Carolina as well. So they've got the third best odds in the SEC. You said they're not even the third best team in their own division. So any futures that you're looking at here for A&M this year?
Not really. I mean, the college football playoff championship, not a chance. The SEC championship, not a chance. I mean, I guess if I really had to do something, maybe it's the division, just a little bit of a sprinkle, just to sort of hedge my bets in case I'm wrong. But no, I mean, right now, I would not take any of those futures for Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M, it's a little bit of an enigma this year. And I think it's there's a little too early in terms of anointing them contenders. Look, that recruiting class, it might lead them to a national championship. In fact, you've seen teams burst onto the scene with stellar recruiting classes, and they've won national championships. I just don't think it's there right now to make an impact.
That is Barrett Sallee on the 9th-ranked team in our preseason top 25 at CBS Sports. You can find the whole list from 1 to 131. At cbssports.com. Here's the top 10. Bama, Ohio State, Georgia, 1, 2, 3. Look at Utah at number 4. Maybe the Pac-12 gets a team in there this season before they maybe disintegrate to nothing in a few years.
Be optimistic, Christopher. It's hard.
Cover 3 podcast, latest episode on what has to happen for the SEC to miss the college football playoff. I'm not sure there's any scenario out there, but the guys will find one.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.